Пока мы будем готовиться к следующему спикеру, я хотел вам еще несколько вопросов задать. Кто хочет поотвечать, кто хочет поболтать со мной? Давайте, вот девочка в... Да. Не, можно прямо оттуда. Да. Как вас зовут? София. Классно, очень красивое имя, как столица Болгарии, да? Город София. Скажите, пожалуйста, вы, какие у вас ожидания от сегодняшнего мероприятия? Все началось классно. Should we speak like in English? Да? Что вы ожидаете сегодня увидеть, узнать? Может быть, вы с какой-то прям определенной целью пришли? Классно. Понравилось вам выступление? Да? The best is to come. Да? Да. Я буду потихоньку вам представлять следующего спикера. У нас следующий спикер Эрин. Она приехала с Америки. Она прилетела с Денвера. Очень-очень длинный полет. Скажите мне, какой предмет у вас самый-самый интересный? Математика. Еще? Физра. Химия. Классно. Сегодня, я надеюсь, что после презентации Эрин вы еще больше полюбите биологию. Потому что биология это предмет тоже основа основ всего нас. Да? Эрин, она не просто биолог или ботаник, который может вам очень многое рассказать про растения, про мир и про окружающую среду, которая вокруг нас. Она еще поэт. Вы знаете, кто такие поэты? Кто такие поэты? Которые пишут произведения. Какие произведения? Стихи. Да, поэты пишут стихи. Эрин – это человек, который пишет разные стихи, истории про ботанику, про науку, про окружающую среду. И сегодня мне нужно, чтобы вы были очень активны. Может, те, кто сзади, можете прийти поближе тоже. Будет очень много активности, очень много беседы, будет очень много вовлеченности. Поэтому я хочу, чтобы вы были очень-очень активны. Хорошо? Договорились? Договорились? Классно. Отлично.
I have some materials here. Maybe you could send one person from each family. We have some worksheets. You can take one of each of these. And there's some feedback forms and a bookmark about some writing tips. And I also have these natural materials. So you can choose whatever looks good to you. Take one natural item for your family to focus on. And take a pen. Make sure you have something to write with. There's pens here. Oh, and I have there's one more thing that I need to set out. Excuse me. Извините. I also have these poetry anthologies written in English by children. So I'm setting these out. They will also make a good clipboard for you to write on. usually like to start my classes with a little choral reading where we all say some of the same words. So I have this quote from the poem If My Paper Should Die by Konashtakpik Abdikakumula. And I'm going to say it in English, and I invite you to say it with me. So I'll say a few words, and then you can say them back. Should we try it? You ready? Okay. The sun's energy. You're very good at this. Very good. It's 32 rays are in my 32 teeth. So I can even watch over the darkness, and I can see the animal in human form. There is an angel on the tip of my tongue. There is an infinity inside me. Okay, very good. Your English is very good. Pronunciation is very good. So let's think a little bit about that quotation. I'll read it through all the way one more time. And I want you to listen to that and think about what does this author do in their writing that brings energy to their work? What makes this piece of writing interesting to you? So here it is again. The sun's energy, its 32 rays are in my 32 teeth. So I can even watch over the darkness, and I can see the animal in human form. There is an angel on the tip of my tongue. There is an infinity inside me. So I'm interested to hear your ideas about what makes that writing interesting to you. So some unusual words in there. Okay, maybe like an infinity.
Infinity is trying to go in this direction.
This idea about an angel on the tip of the tongue is unusual. Okay, so this kind of juxtaposition of interesting images. Okay, unusual words, interesting images. What else stood out to you in that writing? Yes? It's a poem? Yeah, so what makes a poem different from other kinds of language to you? Like what?
Because they use a lot of figurative and metaphor languages.
Oh, beautiful terms there. Figurative language
Metaphors
and metaphors.
and so on.
Wonderful. And what is a metaphor? That's kind of a long word. Does anybody know what a metaphor is? You know an example of one. Can you tell us it?
I know a word that's longer than that.
Oh, you know even longer words. Well, a metaphor is when you compare something directly to something else. She was a bear. Or he was a lamb, you know. Instead of saying he was like a lamb, he was a lamb. So here, do you think there's really an angel sitting on top of this author's tongue?
No.
Probably not. Who knows, right? But it's an interesting idea, an interesting comparison. Okay, anything else that stood out to you in that writing? It's very visual. Excellent. So we have interesting images, we have visual information. Whenever we bring our senses into our writing, it really brings our writing alive. One other thing that stands out for me in this writing is how specific it is. How many teeth are there?
32.
32, and he's saying the 32 rays of the sun too. So when we have specifics, that really helps our writing. So specific details. So our goal today is we're going to do some writing, and we're going to keep in mind these things that bring a spark to our writing and see if we can incorporate some of these ideas. So I have 2 different writing activities for us to do today, and the first one is to write about our natural material. So I brought one up here on the stage, and I thought we could start by writing together about this one, and then we write individually about the materials that you picked up. So, can you see what I have here? What is it?
Grass.
Oh, it looks a little like grass, but it's thicker than that. It came from a tree, that's a hint. It's a kind of a leaf. It looks like fake grass. It's from a kind of, like a Christmas tree. Yeah, these are pine needles. Yeah, pine needles from a pine tree. So our goal is going to be to write about this material without using those words, pine needles, okay? So we're going to start with, it is thicker than grass. Let's start with that. We'll start with that. So we're going to describe this in as much detail as we can. Thicker than grass. What else do you notice about it?
Sharp.
It's sharp, yes, pointy.
It's a needle you can't sew with. Nice.
Oh, I like that. A needle you can't sew with.
It's darker than glass. Smelly. It also smells.
It does smell, yeah.
It smells good.
How would you describe the smell of pine? What did you say?
The smell?
Yes.
It smells like Christmas.
Oh, okay. It smells like Christmas. One sense that we're not going to bring into our writing today is taste, because I don't know if all of these things are safe for us to eat. So please do not eat your plants, but we'll try to use the rest. Okay, so we have a little bit about what it looks like, what it feels like, what it smells like. Yes, don't eat anything poisonous. We're missing what it sounds like. It's being very quiet right now, but if it were still attached to the tree, what might we hear? Maybe it sounds like bells when the wind goes through it. Okay. Okay, so whispering. Ooh, I like that. So right now, this is the form that these needles are taking. Today I am thicker than grass, sharp, a needle you can't sew with. I smell like Christmas, and I sound like bells whispering. We're writing some poetry without even realizing it, huh? This is pretty poetic already, I think. What do you think is something that these pine needles could teach people? What is something that pine needles know how to do that humans could learn something from?
Well, they're always
Yeah.
people can be sharp from you, but inside you like they're soft inside you.
They're prickly on the outside and soft inside? Oh, wonderful. So they have to teach us how to be soft inside, even when we're feeling prickly. could learn from pine needles? Be careful. Okay. Okay, so our imagination, and we're going to think about where did the atoms and energy that form these pine needles now come from? Where did the material to make these pine needles come from? Pollen. Somebody said pollen. Yes. So yesterday I was pollen. What else? Where else did they come from? Roots. Yes. Roots. Seed. What else? What do you need? What other kind of inputs do you need to make like the crown of the tree? This is just a part of the big pine tree. So it's part of the whole tree. Yes. Yesterday I was part of a whole tree. What else do you need to make trees grow besides the seed? Sun and the wind. Water. Air. Sun, wind, water. Air. I'm sorry? Ground? Soil. Yes. Soil and ground. Okay. So yesterday I was pollen, seed, part of a whole tree, roots, sun, wind, water, air, soil, ground. And what is something we can learn from this past of the pine needles? I know hibernation as a seed, yes. So I know how to, how to go dormant, maybe, like a seed does. How to germinate when a seed grows. What else is something we could learn from this past of the pine? You don't know? I know. Sorry, about tree rings?
We can learn about climate change through this.
Oh yes, okay. I know about climate underground and in the air. All right, so now we have, today I am thicker than grass, sharp, a needle you can't sew with. I smell like Christmas, I sound like bells whispering. I know how to be soft inside even when I'm feeling prickly. I know how to be careful. Yesterday I was pollen, seed, part of a whole tree, roots, sun, wind, water, air, soil, ground. I know how to go dormant, how to germinate. I know the climate underground and in the air. Okay, we have one more phase to do for our pine needles, and that is to think about where is their energy going to go next. So I have cut them from the tree. Their life as part of the tree is done. What will happen to them next? What will they become? Where will those atoms and energy go next?
In homes?
In homes? Yeah, so maybe we'll burn them in the fire?
No, not that way. I mean, in the Christmas tree.
Oh, okay. I will be a Christmas tree in someone's home. Okay. What else might happen to those needles? Okay, I could become tea, right? I could become medicine. Furniture. happen to pine needles that just fell on the ground in the forest? They will die, and then what will happen to their atoms? They will become soil, right? They'll decompose. Maybe a worm will eat some of them, so maybe they'll become a worm. They'll become soil. They will rot, yes, And I'm running out of space on my paper because we have so many good ideas. But what is something you think we could learn from this next phase of the pine needle's life? Okay, I know how to become useful to people. Okay. I know about becoming useful. I know about becoming part of the life cycle, I heard.
I know that it's something endless.
I know that it's endless, did you say?
Nothing is endless.
Nothing ever ends, right? All this energy and material is just recycled over and over again. Yes, I know about endless transformation. We've really filled everything up here. Okay, so now I'm going to read through our whole poem that we've written together about pine needles. Today I am thicker than grass. I am sharp. I am a needle you can't sew with. I smell like Christmas and sound like bells whispering. I know how to be soft inside, even when I'm feeling prickly. I know how to be careful. Yesterday I was pollen, seed, part of a whole tree, roots, sun, wind, water, air, soil, ground. I knew how to go dormant. I knew how to germinate. I knew the climate underground and in the air. One day, I will be fire. I will be a Christmas tree. I will be tea or medicine. I will be furniture. I will be worm, soil, and rot. I know about becoming useful, becoming part of the life cycle, about endless transformation. So congratulations, poets. You've written a beautiful poem here about pine needles through time. So, how did I write so much? Well, what did we do? We paid attention, right? We took some time and we really thought and experienced this one little item very carefully. Yes, so this is something, when I was first writing poetry, I talked to a poet who I really admired and said, I'm having a hard time deciding what topics are just for me and what topics make sense for other people to read about. And she said, that doesn't make any sense, Erin. You could write a really important poem about this chair. It just depends what kind of intensity and intention and attention you bring to that topic. So we could write a very important poem about pine needles if we want to. Okay, so now we'll have a little time. You should have the worksheet that says Transformational Writing, where it says, today I am, yesterday I was, one day I will be, and you have your object, and so it's a little time for you to do your own writing using that same format. And I know too. It looks like we may be out of them, but maybe you can look on with a neighbor. You see, it should be Russian on one side and Kazakh on the other. And I have some blank paper too I'll put down there since we're out of the actual handouts. Mentioning what your object is, and then after you have written what you have to say about it, we'll do some sharing, and then the audience will try to guess what your object is. Here's some blank papers. See, we're ready to share. Yes? Okay. I have had one volunteer over here already. And if you would like to share your writing in Russian or Kazakh, we have a translator here who will help me understand. Okay, would you like to start?
It's beautiful, smells sweet and nice. People can admire it. Useful for bees and has of lots of bright colors. People decorate their surroundings. It's a part of honey. It dries compost and soil. Sometimes can be eaten, but never ends, living and blossom.
Okay, what guesses do we have about what that was? What do you think his object
Maybe
was?
a beautiful flower.
A beautiful flower. Do you want to show us what you had?
Where's your flower?
Da-da-da-da. Very good guess. Okay, beautiful writing. Thank you so much for sharing. Who else would like to share?
Today I'm a wilting, dying, helpless soul. I know, very distinctly. I know how painful life can be, and how not everyone becomes a beautiful, magic flower. And that I should have had fun when I was a wild, thriving flower. I was cool at breaking. I knew nothing about the bad stuff coming my way. I should have enjoyed it all then, and maybe I would now be a beautiful flower. But now I will rot away and become dirt and hopefully be useful.
Hey. Can I take a photo of your writing? Okay. And what do people think that writing was about?
I don't know what this flower is, but it's wilting and dying, and it's really prickly.
This is, we call this flower blanket flower or gaillardia in the U.S. I don't know what you call it here, but it's yellow and red, kind of like a daisy. And then these are the seeds.
Yellow and red?
Well, it had yellow and red petals, and now it has turned to seed. Okay, thank you for sharing. Who else would like to share? Okay, yes, I'll come over there.
I did good. Good. I went really nervous.
I am the power supply to many planets and people. I am always and I will always be hot. I always sound like magma and I smell like heat. I was a piece of dust. I gathered more until I was big. I took out some rocks and formed you. In 5 billion years I will be gone. I will be a black hole in my afterlife. I will take out you with me.
This is a little bit of a trick question because the student asked me if they could write about something that wasn't on the table. So do you have a guess what it was about?
The sun.
Yes. Yes, the sun. Very good. Well, can I take a photo? Who else would like to share their work? Here we go.
The topic is about flowers. Beautiful flowers, smells like nature. Gorgeous shapes, never ending. Reminds me about my crush. Positive energy inside. Used for gifts. Make people happy, connected for each other, and can amaze other people.
Okay, did you hear what that was about? Flowers, yes. Would you like to show us your flower? In the U.S., we call these snapdragons. I I don't know if you have a different name for them, but you know you can make them talk. If you pinch them here, they open their mouths. Snapdragon. Okay. Oh yes, here's another to share. And while you're reading, I'm going to take a photo.
Unfortunately, I don't know the name of these green leaves, so I decided to write like a text. I'm a torn leaf, I'm a lifeless and heavy part of ecosystem. Being torn and cut, I transform into different things that people need in their everyday life. I'm used as paper, medicine, and various articles in houses, hotels, and factories. But left and fallen or blown away, I lay in the surface of the ground, being alone and turning day after day into a dark little thing, getting into the ground, knowing that one day I'll be reborn, becoming a beautiful tree, being in blossom and full of energy and beauty, and be very useful for another life for all people.
Yeah, these leaves are from what we call birch, variosa. Yeah. Oh, sure. That's a good point, though. You don't need to know what something is called to be able to study it carefully, right, and make observations about it. Do we have one last person who would like to share, and then we'll move on to our next writing activity? I see a hand over here.
I'm the sunset in a form of a flower. I may look useless, but I'm gorgeous. Today I'm a lovely flower, but yesterday I was a small root, barely sprouted. I look like the sun. I knew that I would always become this lovely flower I am right now. Tomorrow I might die, but you will always remember my beauty.
Yeah, I collected these at like 10 this morning, so they are starting to wilt. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that time to really study something carefully and think about its past and its future. We have one more writing activity to do, and this time we're going to be conducting an interview. So we're going to be asking questions, but we're going to be interviewing something in kind of an imaginary way. So, since the focus of this festival is on energy, I thought we could imagine interviewing a renewable source of energy. So, let me find my marker. There's three main renewable sources of energy that I know of. What do you think those might be? Where can we get energy from in a way that gets replenished naturally? The sun, I heard, yes. Sun, wind, and water. So these are the three forms of energy that we are going to focus on, or sources of energy. And one of the handouts had some questions that you could imagine asking this source of energy. I have the questions in English over here. You don't have to answer all these questions, but these are some ideas for the kinds of things you could imagine asking wind or sun or water. What's your favorite kind of weather? What are you thinking about right now? What's your favorite game to play? What do you wish people knew about you? What do you call yourself? How do you like to be greeted? What is your favorite kind of music? Do you dream? If so, what are your dreams like? what is something that annoys you? What's your favorite word? So, you should have those questions on the piece of paper. You can use that to jot down some ideas. And then I'm going to put down here some tags. I have yellow ones for the sun. I have light blue for the wind. And I have a brighter blue for the water. So once you have thought about what this form of energy would be like if it were a person, imagine, what would sun's personality be like? Then you can take one of these tags that corresponds to the kind of energy that you're writing about, and you can write kind of an introduction to somebody else. Imagine that you were introducing sun to somebody who didn't know anything about sun, and sun was your best friend. So I'll put the tags down here. You can write your introduction to this form of energy, and then outside the auditorium, I have a little rope of green leaves, and we'll hang them up there so that other people can be introduced to these energy forms too. So let me put the tags out.
Questions in English down here that you can look at. There's just one copy of this, but you can take a look to see the kinds of things you could think about asking your source of energy. And then once you have thought about those questions, on your tag, you'll write something introducing your energy source. So for example, if I were going to do water, I might say, let me introduce you to water. Water's favorite kind of weather is stormy. Water's favorite game to play is Marco Polo. Water wishes that people knew that it's very fun to evaporate. Water calls itself, and maybe I'd make up a word, blah, blah, blah. Water likes to be greeted with a wave. Water's favorite kind of music is the Moldau. And my dreams are like, they're all tinted blue. There are no right answers, right? We're just making this up. We're just using our imagination. And something that annoys water is lightning. And water's favorite word is fluid. So I'm just making these up and then compiling those sentences on these tags that we'll hang up outside the auditorium. Does that kind of make sense? Does anybody have more questions about what we're doing right now? Okay, if you get stuck, just raise your hand and I'll come help. Okay, I think it looks like we're about ready, so let's start sharing.
Sun loves sunny weather and is thinking of casting solar flares at Mercury. Calls themselves nothing because they can't talk, and is hyper and bright. Sun is annoyed by cloud for covering himself.
Hyper and bright makes a lot of sense to me for sun. Okay, very good. All right, would you like to share?
Topic is thunder. Thunder loves water, thunder hates lava, and thunder is cool but dangerous.
Cool but dangerous. Not a fan of lava. Who else would like to share? Yes.
Sun, like sunny weather, its favorite game to play is hot potato. I wish people knew that I am a big danger because of the solar winds. I would like Mexico. I like rock music, and my biggest dream is to stay safe, and I call myself Heat.
Eat ball. So now we should all talk about sun as an eat ball from now on. Okay, here's another share over here.
I draw wind. His nickname is Zeus. His favorite game is football or hide and seek. The weather is cloudy, but he doesn't like the weather without because he a little bit not soft. And wish he would do more things than he contact because he's kind of person who wants to do more than he can. Also, he graded by giving life. And also, I think he liked music rock or heavy metal. And also, his favorite word is whoosh.
I wish you all could see this beautiful drawing of wind too. I'm about to give a high five. Isn't that well done? Yeah. Can I take a photo? Okay. Oh, and here's a photo, a drawing of sun too with flaming hair. Love it.
Wow, that looks so cool. Thank you. Yo, maybe I should draw him too. Good idea.
And just in our last couple minutes, I'm wondering if you have any questions for me, maybe about my teaching or my life as a writer or anything that we did today. Have I got any famous books? I have not published my own book yet, so I have had poems published in journals and anthologies and even sung by choirs, but I have not yet published my own book. That's a big goal of mine next.
Do you have any Instagram page or something like social?
Yes, so the class that I teach in the US is called BOCO Wild Writers. It's BOCO because we live in Boulder, Colorado, so BOCO Wild Writers. And I have an Instagram and Facebook page, and I'm posting about my travels here in Kazakhstan. So tomorrow I fly to Almaty, and I'm going to be working with the Open Literary School of Almaty and the Botanic Gardens there doing writing with their Young Citizen Scientist program. And then my sister is joining me, and we are going to Turkestan and Aksu-Jabagli Park as well. So I'm so excited to be here in Kazakhstan and seeing all these new things. When did I start writing poetry? The first poems all flow into one another. And so it's very much like this exercise that we did today, thinking about how things are transformed over time and how nothing ever really goes away, you know, that we just transform. So yeah, that is my favorite book.
Excuse me.
How long did you do poetry?
Well, I've really been writing poetry ever since I was 9. So I'm 49, so that math is easy. 40 years. Yeah.
Cool. That's a long time actually.
Я на русском, да? Во-первых, мне очень понравилось, я родитель и тоже педагог, поэтому мне понравилось сочетание вот, знания по предмету той же биологии через поэзию.
Firstly, she wants to say that she really liked your presentation. She's as a parent and as a teacher, most of all like the part of reading and how you interpret the words.
По биологии связали, да.
How you compare the metaphor with the biology terms.
Я бы хотела, чтобы вы также приезжали и в другие города. Мы из Караганды. из другого города.
And she would like to that you came to the other cities, and she's from Karaganda. It's one of the cities of Kazakhstan.
So my training academically is as a biologist. Yes, so I have a Bachelor of Science degree in biology for undergrad, and I have a Master of Science degree in museum and field studies. And in that, I studied botany as well as informal education, museum education, environmental education, environmental interpretation, taking people on nature walks and things like that. So my own writing is very filled with scientific terms and scientific knowledge, just because that's the way that I see the world. But I find so many scientists who also are interested in writing and writers that have science backgrounds. I think to be a good writer or to be a good scientist, you need to pay attention to the world. So either way, you're probably already doing that, and it's not that hard to do the other thing. I have this other presentation where I have photos of me in the field as a scientist, and I'm writing in my field journal, and then me as a writer in the field, and I look exactly the same. I'm doing the same thing as a scientist or a writer. I'm paying attention and making observations and writing them down. So I think that our academic systems make writing and science two very different fields, but I think the skills are very kind of transferable between the two areas. Yeah. Thank you. Well, I think we're just about at the end here. I see one last question, and then we'll set you loose for lunch, right?
Okay. Have you published any poems or something?
Yes, I've published a bunch of poems. The last poem that I had published was published in a journal called The Fall Web, which is about the kind of the fall line in a river, the way that a river flows. And that poem was about a dentist in Alaska. So I published poems about lots of different things. Well, I would like to thank you so much for your time and your attention and your conscientious writing, and I think we accomplished these goals of including all these aspects in our writing.
Here it is. In English, it's from a poem called Mother Tongue by Kula Akhmatova, translated by Belinda Cook. And so I will say a part of it, and then you can repeat what I have said. And that way we'll read this bit of poem together. I will give language. Can you say that back? I will give language. Let's try one more time. I will give language to the forest and mountain valleys. With the strength of words, I can smash metal. Like the night, like the very cores of the high stars, and I understand the soul of someone close to me and the bright mind of a stranger. So this is what we're trying to do with our writing as scientists. We're trying to speak for the forests, for the valleys, and smash metal where metal needs to be smashed. So that is our goal. So our focus is going to be, since this is an energy-focused festival, I thought we'd focus on how to bring energy to our writing. And these are some of my students writing in the mountains. As scientists, we're taught to follow the very predictable format of journal articles, where we have our abstract, introduction, methods, discussion, conclusion, results, and it's very regimented, and that helps for understanding across cultures, but it also takes a lot of the personalization out of the writing. But when we think of our favorite science writers, we usually think of people who include their experiences in the writing and include their personality in what we're reading. So these are just a few of my favorite science writing books that I pulled off the shelf. So the question is, how can we insert some passion into our science writing? Because when we think of what makes a good scientist, it's someone who's passionate about their area of expertise and someone who can communicate their ideas well. So that's what we're trying to raise in our young scientists. So one way that we can get at this is by making sure there are opportunities for our students to work directly with the things that we're talking about. So hands-on learning where they're interacting right with real objects, real organisms. Here my students are experiencing tiger salamanders up close and personal after we caught them in a pond. So one way that we can do that as science teachers is through lab. You know, science is lucky in that we have this built-in time often with lab to be working directly with materials. But sometimes that ends up being just making measurements and not really interacting so much with the objects or organisms. Another way that we can involve direct observation is through this concept of sit spots. So this is an idea that John Young talks about, but it's having a place where you can take your students repeatedly over time to see changes in the environment. And so maybe there is a little green area next to your school where you could have a little monthly visit to that space and make observations about seasonal changes. In my classes, we also do an annual almanac where we write once a month on the same prompt, and then we compile that whole year's worth of observations to that prompt. So, for example, we've done a year where we recorded our 5 senses for each month. January looks like whatever. It smells like, it tastes like, and this is what January is to us right now. And we've also done that with 4 directions. Most cell phones have a compass in them now, so you can really orient yourself to north, east, south, and west with your students and make observations in those different directions. This year, we did above me and below me. Just took a few minutes to look up in the sky and down at our feet and record what we saw in those areas. There's a poet, Amy Nezhukumah in the US, who has this cloud report practice. Even if you don't have green space near your school, if you have windows in your classroom, you can observe the clouds and how did they change over time. Make a little monthly cloud report. And I'm wondering if any of you teachers already do something like this in your classrooms, what kind of a repeated observation practice you might have, or if you don't do it yet, if you have ideas about another kind of almanac prompt that would make sense to you. So does anybody do something like this with their students already? Okay, great. All right, well, if you do think of other things that we can build into our almanac practice, this year I've decided we're going to do outside, inside. So we're going to describe what we see outside and then how we're feeling inside. Do a little social emotional learning that way. Another way that we can approach
our writing is through our reading. You know, you hear that all the time. If you want to improve as a writer, read more. So if we want to improve our science writing, we can also make sure we're doing science reading. So one way we can do that is help students read beyond just the conclusion of the study that they're examining and really think about, well, how was this study designed? What parts of this study seem elegant? And also, what parts of the study were